Facing an outbreak of teenage pregnancies, Kenyan parents are being encouraged not to marry off their daughters if they become pregnant. We'll see what one center is doing to help.
Vulnerable households in Sokoto and Katsina states are benefiting from relief items as part of many celebrations nationwide marking this year's Nigerian Army Day.
Meet Andaga Salom, a seamstress from Chad, struggling to make ends meet. She's feeling the need for help from our government.
Hello and welcome to Africa 54. I'm Chamberlain Osoro, Channels Television here in Lagos. I'm joined by Vincent Makori at Voice of America in Washington.
Well, thanks. I'm Vincent Makori. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Well, due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, the Voice of America has reduced staffing at VOA headquarters in Washington. As you see, our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future. We appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Let's start off with the latest from Nigeria. Chamberlain Oso in Lagos brings you that story.
The Nigerian Army is distributing palliatives in impoverished communities to help cushion the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is part of events in commemoration of this year's Nigerian Army Day being marked nationwide. In Sokoto and Katsina states, vulnerable individuals and households are benefiting from relief items being distributed by divisions of the force. Channels Television's correspondent Abdulsamad Terry compiled the report.
The COVID-19 pandemic has taken a toll on people's sources of livelihood, and the hardest hit are low-income earners, vulnerable individuals and households, as well as impoverished communities. To help cushion the impact of the outbreak, the 8th Division of the Nigerian Army, Sokoto, is distributing palliatives to commemorate this year's week-long Nigerian Army Day celebration. Beneficiaries from different communities in Sokoto State are here to receive the relief packages being distributed. The representative of the General Officer commanding of the 8th Division says the gesture is a reflection of a commitment to citizens' welfare, in addition to its core mandate of security.
The distribution of palliatives today by Nigerian Army formations countrywide is part of our civil-military cooperation activities that is aimed at forging partnership with communities where we operate. Also, with the devastating effects of the coronavirus on the economy, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General T.Y. Boratai, has therefore deemed it fit to key into the federal government efforts at distributing palliatives to ameliorate the effects of the coronavirus on the economy, particularly amongst the most vulnerable persons. It is on this note that I seek the cooperation of all our host local communities to provide information to the security forces in support of our discharge of our constitutional roles.
The distribution is replicated in Katsina State, and according to the Nigerian Army, this, like other interventions around the country, are aimed at strengthening civil-military relations.
This craved for a cordial relationship necessitated the conception of this distribution of palliatives, which is also very much in line with the civil-military cooperation drive of the Nigerian Army to bridge the gap between the civil populace and the Nigerian Army, thereby portraying the Nigerian Army in a positive light. The Nigerian Army has enjoyed, and I hope will continue to enjoy, the support and cooperation of the good people of Katsina, Kaduna, Zamfara, Sokoto, Kebbi, and Niger states towards surmounting the challenges of insecurity in these areas and in the country at large.
The Nigerian Army Day is celebrated nationwide every year, where the force usually showcases its military might. This year, the Army is using the opportunity to improve cooperation with the public in order to better secure the populace.
Let's get more on providing succor to vulnerable households in this difficult time. We're joined by Mr. Kola Masha, the lead coalition partner of GiveFood.ng, an organization that is linking donors to those in need. Welcome to the program. Now, poverty has been a social problem, an effort that has been, several efforts actually have been made to address this challenge from government policies and the likes. Could you tell us, from what you've seen, what kind of impact has COVID-19 had on the poverty index?
Well, I think COVID-19 has definitely been an unprecedented challenge, particularly with the impact that it's had not only on domestic supply chains, but international supply chains, as well as constraints around being able to congregate and as groups. So I think these two implications have made things definitely significantly worse.
To a large extent, the nation's large population makes distribution of resources a bit of a challenge. Would you say enough has been done by government to cushion the impact of the pandemic on vulnerable population?
Well, I think, generally, one of the key challenges that not just Nigeria, but I think most developing countries struggle from is truly effective social safety net, where we're able to not only to first truly identify the most vulnerable, but create programs and fund programs that are able to provide support to them. I think, broadly speaking, developing countries across the globe do have quite a ways to make this a reality.
For the private sector, we've seen efforts here and there to partner with government to address this unprecedented global crisis. How would you rate the involvement of these private sector entities?
Well, I think the private sector definitely has stepped up quite significantly. You've seen multiple different efforts in that vein, from private sector organizations coming together to actually set up and fund the establishment of many isolation centers, as well as to help directly provide support to many people in these difficult times. And I think recognizing the ability of the private sector to do that, despite the fact that the reality is the economic fallout from coronavirus has hit many of the private sector companies quite hard. But despite that, they've been willing to really step up and play their part.
Now, you work with an organization that serves as a channel for donating food to vulnerable people. How effective has this been in reaching those most in need?
Well, I think GiveFood.ng has really, set an example of what the private sector can do very rapidly. I think the reality is the GiveFood.ng coalition is a coalition of over 30 organizations, leading food organizations across the country, as well as public and other private sector partners. And really, at the end of the day, what GiveFood.ng has enabled is, in a very short period of time, create a system that has delivered over 200,000 meals to families in desperate need during these very difficult times. And I think what differentiates the work of GiveFood.ng is the fact that, first and foremost, we've been able to leverage technology to make it exceptionally easy for the everyday Nigerian to support those in need in their community. By simply going to GiveFood.ng, an individual can donate as little as 100 naira and support vulnerable people in their community with a meal. In addition, one of the things that's made GiveFood.ng unique is the fact that we're using existing supply chains, which has enabled us to really scale our impact quite rapidly. The way that GiveFood.ng operates is just go to GiveFood.ng, you donate make your donation. Your donation is basically transferred into what's called food packs. So food pack is a package of food valued at 2,000 naira that provides enough food for one person for 1 week. And that food pack is now transferred digitally to a person in need that you know personally by simply putting in their phone number, or to an individual and family in need in a particular area that you care about, working through our network of over 100 volunteer organizations. Now, that person in need can then very simply walk into our network of over 100 supermarket partners and redeem that token for food. And so with that, we've been able to scale now. We are operating in over 11 states across the entire country and have been able to support very rapidly in the provision of over 200,000 meals.
All right, Mr. Kola Masha, thank you for joining us today on Africa 54.
Well, people who get most of their news from social media sites like Facebook and YouTube are much more likely to believe conspiracy theories about the coronavirus pandemic and are more likely to break lockdown rules. That's according to new research. Henry Ridgewell reports from London.
In recent weeks, dozens of 5G mobile telecoms masts have been set on fire across Britain. Police say many of the attacks have been motivated by a false belief that 5G technology is linked to the coronavirus pandemic. Research by King's College London and polling company Ipsos Mori shows a strong correlation between belief in such conspiracy theories and a reliance on social media for news, including Facebook, YouTube, Twitter and WhatsApp, rather than broadcast or print media. Among people who believe the coronavirus does not exist at all, some 56% cited Facebook as their primary source of news.
And we found that people who had gone outside or gone to work, despite having what they knew were possible coronavirus symptoms, were much more likely to be getting their information from social media.
That presents a health risk that must be addressed, says British lawmaker Damian Collins, who also has concerns over the role social media might play in any vaccination programme.
If we get to a position where we've got a vaccine, and for the vaccine to be effective, we need the vast majority of people to agree to take it. It's important that people have got confidence in that. And if people are spreading conspiracy theories and lies about the vaccine and trying to persuade people not to take it, then there's a serious public health risk to that.
Facebook, YouTube and Twitter say they have removed hundreds of thousands of videos and posts relating to COVID-19 misinformation that could lead to imminent harm. But the social media giants are facing a backlash on multiple fronts. More than 150 companies, including Starbucks and Coca-Cola, have stopped buying advertising on Facebook over concerns around misinformation and hate speech. At the same time, US President Donald Trump is seeking to strip social media companies of legal immunity for the content posted by users after Twitter tagged one of his tweets with a fact-check notice.
I think this, if Twitter were not honorable, if you're going to have a guy like this be your judge and jury, I think you shut it down as far as I'm concerned, but I'd have to go through a legal process to do that.
Social media companies say they have robust systems in place to deal with misinformation, but they remain opaque, says Allington.
Those systems have got to be opened up for auditing by democratically accountable bodies.
The evidence that social media may be amplifying falsehoods about the coronavirus pandemic will likely increase the pressure on such companies to clamp down harder on misinformation. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
The war against HIV and AIDS faces a new threat as the novel coronavirus continues to spread around the globe, setting back years of progress made against fighting HIV and AIDS. According to health experts, people living with the virus in Africa, like other parts of the world, are at a higher risk of COVID-related morbidity and mortality.
COVID-19 has disrupted lives and livelihood of people everywhere. As the pandemic spreads in countries in sub-Saharan Africa with high HIV prevalence, there is evidence that people living with HIV are at higher risk of COVID-19 related morbidity and mortality. Lockdowns have also made accessing clinics and getting treatment difficult in many countries. Health authorities estimate that a 6-month disruption of antiretroviral therapy due to COVID-19 restrictions could lead to over 500,000 additional deaths from AIDS-related illnesses in sub-Saharan Africa. HIV risk among adults is higher among specific ages, genders and subpopulations by region. In sub-Saharan Africa, adolescent girls and young women aged 15 to 24 years in particular are at higher risk of HIV infection.
If the HIV test comes back positive, we have people go for counseling. Then we see if the patient is ready and understands treatments, antiretroviral therapy. And if yes, then they are transferred immediately to our ARV dispatch office.
Adolescent girls and young women account for 30% of new infections in the regions most affected by HIV in Eastern and Southern Africa. While in either regions, men accounted for majority of new adult HIV infections in 2019, ranging from 57% in the Caribbean to 79% in Western and Central Europe and North America.
As we have seen with HIV, and as we now see with COVID-19, epidemics affect everyone, but they do not affect everyone equally. To fight COVID, we have to fight inequalities because pandemics feed on and widen inequalities.
Since 2010, increased access to antiretroviral therapy has averted an estimated 12.1 million AIDS-related deaths. According to a new report released by UNAIDS, the world is not yet close to achieving the 3 zeros of the envisioned global HIV response by 2030.
We remind you to visit our website, channelstv.com, for news and other programming around the clock. You can also find us at youtube.com/channelsweb. Still to come, see how this Angolan innovator bridges the entertainer-to-consumer gap caused by the government-imposed COVID lockdown. That's in a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. As Kenya struggles to curb the spread of the coronavirus, the East African country is facing another outbreak, teenage pregnancies. Now, during 3 months of lockdown, 152,000 Kenyan teenage girls became pregnant, a 40% increase in the monthly average. There is also a campaign to encourage parents not to marry off their girls due to the pregnancies. Mohammed Yusuf has more from Nairobi.
Tabita Mukui, 45, lives in a remote village in Machakos County, eastern Kenya. Her teenage daughter is one of more than 150,000 young girls who have become pregnant since Kenya announced its first COVID case in March. Mukui discovered the pregnancy just last week after her daughter wore a sweater for many days.
I asked her to remove her sweater, and she removed the sweater. I looked at her and saw that she was pregnant. I felt so angry inside, but I did not beat her. I did not yell at her.
Rafael Chengo, local chief in the area, says he usually deals with 1 or 2 pregnancy cases in a year.
In these 3 months, I have received and directly dealt with 4 cases.
This Center for Vulnerable Boys and Girls have received 41 children since March, 18 of them girls.
Defilement cases was a major factor there among the group. We have also 3 cases of orphaned children, and the rest of the group were to seek protection. We found that they are not safe in places where they used to reside before.
Agencies say at least 150,000 girls have become pregnant in the last 3 months, a 40% increase from last year. Machakos County recorded 4,000 cases in the past 3 months. Kate Maina Voli, the country director for Plan International in Kenya, says the COVID-19 pandemic is taking away the gains made in empowering girls.
It's shone a light on the ugly face of gender-based violence and the atrocities that are committed on girls in Kenya. It has shone a light on the gender disparities, and we now run the risk of eroding all the gains we've had in terms of advancing equality for girls.
As for Mukui, She says she has accepted the situation with her daughter and is ready to support her daughter when she is ready to finish her education. Mohammed Yusuf for VOA News, Matu, Kenya.
When the Angolan government imposed its coronavirus lockdown in late March, an entrepreneur and innovator saw a gap that needed to be filled when it comes to virtual entertainment. He created an app that brings performers closer to their audience during the lockdown, and entertainers are raking in some income. Have a look.
Popular Angolan DJ Richelli hosts a virtual show from his house, streaming live on a new app called Sober App Channel. The app allows users watch the entertainer perform on their mobile devices in the absence of social gatherings.
Gives me a better experience because I'm alone, you know. I don't have to listen to the other people screaming and doing this stuff. I just have to stand there and watch it. It's better like that.
Sober is the first virtual entertainment platform in Angola that allows artists to charge for their shows, as social gatherings remain prohibited in the country. DJ Richelli was one of the first to jump on the platform after his income was slashed to zero because of the lockdown.
This virus has brought us a new environment, a new ways to live, and this is a survival way for artists that wants to keep doing their job. My first experience, we charge like 1,000 kwanzas each person, and the limit of the class that we asked about was 100 people just for the first experience. It was good. It was good. People got excited. They got into it. They bought the tickets, and we made a show.
The developer of the app had been working on the app before the crisis struck, and the lockdown accelerated the launch.
When we started working with artists, our main idea was to create other ways for Angolan artists specifically to be respected for their art and to be paid for their art. So we started selling digital music. But then we had this project in which artists would find alternative ways to capitalize from their art. But what happened was that this pandemic situation led us to accelerate a few of the ideas that we already had, and we decided to create the platform where artists could still host concerts and other types of gathering with their fans and be paid for that.
The app is a win-win deal for fans who are happy to pay between $2 to $6 per hour, depending on the performer, who in turn gets to keep 90% of the ticket fee. And for the founder, it is all about providing an alternative method of earning income for Angolan performers.
Many countries on the African continent have extended their stay-at-home order, while others like Chad began easing their lockdown restrictions. Here's the testimony of Andaga Salom, a young seamstress from Chad who was struggling to make ends meet and is asking the government to lend her a hand.
Before I had customers and used to receive fabric at the end of every month. But with the coronavirus, I do not have any more customers like before. I avoid big crowds. And I respect all the rules that the government implemented. No, I did not receive any help during the crisis. They came to take our names, but I didn't get anything. With the end of the lockdown, I can resume my work and have customers like I did before the crisis.
Well, and that's our show for today. You can find all the continent's top news and world news online at voaafrica.com. Check it out. I'm Vincent Makori in Washington. Channel Television has our last word from Lagos.
Well, thanks, Vincent. We look forward to bringing you another show next week. Don't forget, channelstv.com is your source for news and other programming. I'm Chamberlain Uso. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.